All right, welcome back, friends and neighbors. This is Professor H with the solution to Packet of the Week number 19. We are coming to you live from the fabulous RIT Networking Labs. So without further ado, let's take a look at the question that we had in Packet of the Week number 19. So here was our topology, and in this particular case, what we're going to do is ping across a routed topology from 15.1 to 20.1. And what's significant about that command is the n-2. And that just means that we're going to send 2 ICMP echo requests from the host. Well, as we can see, our problem all started when we sent this ping and the packets all just sort of fell flat on their face. Maybe something was unplugged and the bits fell out on the floor, but there we have it. So our first task was to sort of arrange these packets. So if we do this, we can see that the packets sort of line up this way, and we could sort of orient them with a time base, but that's really our problem. What happened first? So that's the collection of packets, but really what happened first? Now, one very handy tool that we have in networking, at least as far as the analysis goes, when we're trying to understand something, is something called the flow diagram. And you're going to see me using more and more of these in not only the books, but also our discussions here. They're really handy for figuring out what happens. And a flow diagram has all of the nodes involved in the conversation, but it's time-based. So if we blow this up a little bit, and I show you there's the time axis. So as things flow from the top to the bottom, time is moving on. So time is increasing. So you might say that t equals 0 at the very top of this. And we can see that the conversation begins with an ARP exchange. So one of the assumptions that I make in this topology is that the ARP tables for everybody are clear. So the first thing that we see is node 15.1 when he discovers by looking at his host routing table that the destination is off of the network, realizes that he has to talk to his default gateway to do this. Remember, the default gateway is a router. So the first thing that he does is ARPs for the default gateway. And remember that the assumption is that the ARP tables are clear. So we see the ARP for the default gateway, 15.254, and the corresponding ARP response. Now once the host, 15.1, understands where the default gateway is in terms of the MAC address, he can now send this ICMP echo request to the router using the router's MAC address, but its destination is actually 20.1 from a layer 3 perspective. So the IP packet is to 20.1. Alright, so the other thing that we have to remember here on this flow diagram is that the interfaces 15.254 and 20.254 are actually part of the same box. So the router is actually both 15.254 and 20.254. They're just interfaces on the same box. So what ends up happening is the router gets this ICMP message and says, all right, where are you going? Oh, you're going to 20.1. Well, I know where that is, but I don't know how to send a frame to that address. So again, the router now has to ARP for 20.1. And so the second conversation that we see here is that the router ARPs for 20.1. The host at 20.1 responds with an ARP response, and then the router can forward this ICMP message. And you can see that we're marching ahead in time here. We're moving down our flow diagram, and the ICMP message goes out. At this point, 20.1 can now respond with the ICMP echo reply. So the ICMP echo response, and then the ICMP echo reply. Well, this ICMP echo reply comes back from 20.1, goes to the router, and the router forwards it back to 15.1. So 15.254 sends this to 15.1. Now remembering that this was an ICMP echo request and response exchange, as a result of a ping minus N2, we now have to complete the second ICMP echo exchange. That's why in this particular diagram you see another set of ICMP messages go. The default for Windows is 4, and the default for Linux is just to do this continuously. So if we're going to sort of mark this off in sections of the conversation. Remember, the first thing that happened on the 15 network was the ARP and then the ICMP. That moved across to the other side where we saw another ARP exchange, and then the ICMP was forwarded back there, number 3. Number 4 is when the ICMP echo response or reply was sent back to 15.1 from 15.254. And the last part of this conversation is the second ICMP echo request and echo reply exchange. Well, that'll about do it. I hope you enjoyed this particular packet of the week, and I hope you enjoyed the format too. I'll continue to do more of the packet of the week, and hey, if you send me an email or send me a request, I'll try to add those suggestions in. Remember that there's a lot of stuff out at brucehartpence.com, resources and configs out there, and I'm adding more all the time. And these things all come to us courtesy of the Packet Guide to Core Network Protocols, the Packet Guide to Routing and Switching, the Packet Guide to Voice over IP, all available at O'Reilly. Well, thanks again for watching, thanks for listening, and may your packets always reach their destinations.